and Crawford.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're gonna call the December 10th Community Advisory Council meeting to order at 6 p.m. and we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'm Lorena Barrera with District 3.
Nancy Pember.
Brent Kidder, Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office here in Sonoma County.
Amber Ward, District 3.
Casey Jones, District 2.
John Azevedo, District 4.
Jason Solomon, District 1.
Alberto Botello, member at large.
Robin Drews, my last meeting as a District 1 rep.
Lisa Camacho Layla.
And then on the screen. John,
Hi, John Alden. I've got a cold, so I'm gonna show up remotely here.
okay, hope we feel better. And then we have Ricardo in case there's translation services needed. Okay, moving on to item 2, we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. And we'll do those in 2 separate motions. So we'll start with the October 22nd, 2025 special meeting minutes. Are there any comments from the CAC on those? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. We're moving to approve the October 2022 meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, no nays or abstentions?
Well, I abstained because I wasn't there.
Abstain,
Abstain, yeah.
abstain, okay. 2 abstentions and the motion carries. Thank you. Then the November 12th meeting minutes, are there any comments from CAC members?
Yes, I have a correction on this, the ICE stats that were reported by Lieutenant Kidder. There was the number of arrests in October should be 6, not 0.
Thank you. Any other comments or corrections? Is there any public comment on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back for a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Robin.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Thank you, Alberto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Moving on to member attendance, openings and appointments. Thank you, Lizette, for putting in the attendance report. And thank you all for continuing to come to meetings. Attendance is very important to have quorum and continue with our business. And there is a requirement that we come to 70% of meetings per year. We have openings in District 2 and then sadly an upcoming opening in District 1. So if you know anyone who's interested in serving on the CAC, let them know to apply and contact their board, their supervisor.
I think we were going to put a link to the application on the ILR website.
Thank you. We'll check in on that. Or reports and comments. We will start with the sheriff's liaison report. Thank you.
All right, hello, everybody. Community engagement over the last month or so. We attended the Chalkhill Coat meeting, a PG&E summit, this is the K9 demonstration. Sheriff's Office Ag Crimes Unit entered a float into the Geyserville Tractor Parade. We participated in Annalee High School's career. It was a classroom presentation consisting of crime prevention, a dispatcher, and a correctional deputy. There was a community watch meeting that we attended at the Palms down off the avenue. The primary concern with that meeting was regarding trespassing and trespass issues that the staff faces with some of the residents and some of the residents' guests. There was we attended the Windsor holiday celebration, the tree lighting. And the most significant event on this list is the Pack the Patrol car, I believe it was last week. It was a great turnout. We had our Bearcat and our patrol car both full of gifts and food that was handed out to members of the community. And our PIO, Sergeant Valencia, continues to work with Spanish radio 2 or 3 times a month, answering questions and relaying information via that media. ICE related stats for this month, well, it's actually for November, going to be 60 notifications received from ICE. There were 15 requests for information. We returned 5 notifications. And last month, there were 2 arrests by ICE in the detention facility. And in November, we did receive another warrant from ICE
You said in December?
in November.
In November.
And then the other bit of information, according to the sheriff newsletter, we wanted everybody to know that the gang intelligence correctional deputy position is returning to full staff starting January 2026. The duties of that position is that officer, the deputy, identifies incarcerated persons who are members, affiliates, or associates of prisons or street gangs, provides training to the detention staff through in-service or on-the-job training classes. They also investigate incarcerated person behavior, activity, and incidents that reflect or involve gang behavior. They also collaborate with other agencies to communicate about gang crimes, patterns, and trends that are occurring county and statewide. And that is my report.
Thank you. John?
Hey, good evening. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. There's a little bit of a lag on my end, but I think I can adjust. I'll be kind of short because I'm a little under the weather here, but in the last month, we've mostly been working, internally at ILRO, trying to crank out a lot of audits. And one of the things that we just finished up and will be releasing to the public shortly is a project that my predecessor, Carlene Navarro, started called the Community Oriented Policing Project. And she created a partnership with Sonoma State University to do some surveying, some polling of community members about what community oriented policing meant to them and what sorts of things they thought in that regard were going well or could use improvement in the sheriff's office. So we'll have a public release of that report shortly. We've been working with the sheriff's office on it for quite some time, like before I came to ILRO, actually, and also in concert with a professor at Sonoma State University, Emily Asensio, and some of her team. And when we release that, I think that'll be interesting for people to read. I think a couple core takeaways are, as a general rule, a lot of people in Sonoma County feel like they see community-oriented policing as having abundant communication with individuals at the sheriff's office, getting to know the deputies in their area, for example, and that in large part that communication is pretty good, and that some of the people who especially cared about that are, this might not be a surprise, people that predominantly get their law enforcement services from the sheriff, like people in West County or people in the Sonoma Valley. And so it's an interesting report. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more in a future CAC meeting after we release it, but we'll probably be getting that out sometime in the next few weeks. And we've also been spending some time with the chair and vice chair planning your strategic planning meeting in January, on January 10th. I know that's an item on the agenda here, so I could speak to that a little more too when that item comes up on the agenda. And we are all, of course, very sad that Robin Jers is leaving us and will not be back as a CAC member. So, you know, there's been a lot of downtime at CAC with people being sad about that. So anyway,
Very sad.
very, very sad. Any questions? Well, I suppose questions actually are after the next report. Happy to take some when it's the right time.
Yeah, any questions from CAC members for either Lieutenant Kidder or John?
I just have one question about the staff. Is the warrant in addition to the 2 arrests, or is one of the arrests via judicial warrant?
Different.
They're different.
I just received was in.
That was my question too. Can you, so when you, why would they send, like, why would they give you a warrant? Like what, as opposed to some other method of, like, what does that mean exactly? Are they saying you have someone in custody that they want, or?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's someone, so again, we don't hold on behalf of ICE unless we receive a warrant.
Okay,
So they must really want this person. They ended up filling out the warrant affidavit for a warrant. It was signed by a judge. And then they sent it to us.
okay,
And so we are just like we would if like Marin County or Mendocino County or any other county or state sent us a warrant for an individual, we would then be required to
respond.
hold that person.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm.
Lieutenant Kidder, my question is, does it seem like it's been a pretty steady request for information from ICE over the last year? Seems like it's pretty consistent, like it hasn't, I was expecting more of a spike, to be quite honest.
Mhm.
If you went back in time a couple of years, has the request from ICE, does it seem like it's been pretty steady, or has it increased in your opinion? You could,
I can't speak to that because I wasn't aware of these statistics before I started this position. I really can't speak to it. I can only speak to the statistics that I have in front of me, which are for this entire year. And I mean, I guess in general, the last 5 months, we've received, I don't know, maybe like 10 more requests than we were the first 4 or 5 months of the year, on average, give or take. As far as returning notifications to ICE, I actually still think we're at the same level as we were in the beginning of the year. And then request for information. Last month was the biggest month at like 24. Other than that, this month, 15 is, I mean, it's gonna be somewhere about the average. So, yeah, I mean, maybe an increase to an extent, but not the spike that I think that you're representing. At least for this year, and again, I can't speak to 2024. I can probably get those statistics if you're interested in that. How many years back are you looking to go?
even a year, I think would be interesting.
Maybe 2 years, I would say. I remember, your colleague said she loved to work on that because it's data stuff. And she said she's a data nerd. So I think might be a fun project.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question for John. I just wondered about the release of the annual report and, you know, if you've gotten feedback about that, or if you've gotten, you know, what has been the response? Anything?
Oh, you know, we did do the town hall on
Yeah.
board. And had pretty good attendance there. And there were a few questions at the town hall. I would say that, you know, the feedback that we've been getting from the public recently has more been about the David Pelaez Chavez shooting report, which came out
Oh,
actually a
right.
few months ago now, but we get a lot of contacts about that and not nearly as many about the annual report.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Mhm, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Oh, I forgot to say, we don't have anything for CAC public correspondence. And now we'll open it up to public comment. if you have any comments on the reports that were provided, now's the time, no? And Jim's up, he doesn't have his hand up, so we'll close public comment. And move on to the business items, and we'll start with. The first item, which is the reorganization of. CEC officers. So we remember to put it ahead of the start of the year this year, so that way. We're kind of more on schedule, moving forward. So as the bylaws require, I have to read the qualifications and powers and duties of officers, and then we'll proceed with the selection of chair and selection of vice chair. So to qualify to serve as chair, a member shall have attended at least 4 meetings within 6 months prior to nomination, be an able and willing communicator, express the intention to attend and lead at least 10 of the regular CAC meetings during a 1-year term. The vice chair, the responsibilities are the same as that of the chair, except that as vice chair, you support the chair to fulfill all of the duties that are assigned. For powers and duties of officers, for the chair, at CAC meetings, the chair shall preside over the meetings, maintain orderly procedure in accordance with these bylaws, and decide questions and procedures subject to the full CAC. Develop the agenda for CAC meetings with the assistance of other CAC members, officers, and staff. Be allowed to participate in discussion relating to any matters she or he deems appropriate. Recognize any member of the CAC who desires to recognize any member of the CAC who desires to
Always
speak. We will look into what word is missing there. We're gonna blame the county because they add these to the website. Number 6, rule on all procedural matters or questions not specifically addressed in these bylaws, subject to the approval of the full CAC. The printed versions include everything. Okay. Work with officers and staff to produce minutes of the meetings. Duties related to Community Advisory Council operations. The chair shall serve as a primary liaison to the Islero director, serve as an ex officio member, and remain cognizant of the activities and progress of all committees, if any. That means all the ad hocs. Participate together with the officers and staff in creating and monitoring the progress of the CAC's work activities to ensure that CAC goals are met, and periodically make a progress report to the CAC. Serve as a resource to members in their efforts to contribute to the CAC's work, and when required, collaborate with other officers and staff to resolve issues related to a CAC member's fulfillment of designated duties. Represent and speak on behalf of the CAC at public meetings, like the Board of Supervisors meetings, on matters related to the CAC. Create and sustain amicable and effective relationships with county and community leaders and organizations. Advocate for CAC initiatives throughout the county approval process. Remain cognizant of Brown Act requirements, both during meetings and throughout the month. Monitor and intervene as needed. The vice chair presides over CAC meetings in the chair's absence. There's more words.
Absence is missing.
Yeah. Assist the chair in developing the agenda for CAC meetings. Participate together with other officers and staff in monitoring the progress of the CAC work activities to ensure that CAC goals are met. Serve as a resource to CAC members in their efforts to contribute to the CAC's work, and when required, collaborate with other officers and staff to resolve issues related to a CAC member's fulfillment of designated duties. Fill a vacancy occurring in the office of chair for the unexpired term. So, those are the qualifications and responsibilities. And now we will proceed to take nominations, and then after someone gets nominated, they have to accept. And then we can do the vice chair and then do one vote. Or, yeah, and you do it as a slate, I think. But we can do it separately if you guys want to. So are there any nominations for chair of the CAC?
I nominate Nancy.
I don't accept the chair.
Okay. I nominate
I
Lorena
nominate-
again. Lorena again.
Okay, is there any other interest from other members of the CAC?
Don't all rush to volunteer.
Okay, I'll accept. Is there a nomination for vice chair? I'd like to nominate Nancy.
Second nomination.
Yeah.
Do you accept?
Yeah, I accept that.
Okay, so we have, we both accepted, there were no other nominations, so then we can do we'll take a motion to select, to continue with the same officers for calendar year 2026. There a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Nate. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Abstentions? Oh, I didn't take public comment. Is there any public comment? Was that, okay. I don't think there's any interest. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And that motion carries. Thank you all for nominating us again.
Thank you for accepting again.
Thank you for your confidence in us.
I have tried to recruit people to be chair, but it hasn't worked. Okay, moving on to discussion and possible action on the draft ad hoc committee toolkit. So this was continued from the November meeting. And we did, make a few changes. And I can just mention kind of what they were. So it was, just adding SMART goals to like the step 1 section, because it wasn't really detailed the first time we printed the toolkit in the packet. And then, the other things that were added were what we had kind of approved to do last year. Which was that we would work with the consultant that Iolero hires for us, that we would select the chair, that we would report out. And I think that was it. And we just added it to like step 1 of the toolkit. But aside from that, it's the same as was presented in November. So are there any questions from CAC members on the toolkit? If you guys recall, the reason that we have this on here was because it seemed like we needed kind of like a guide to help us figure out how the work of an ad hoc kind of evolves to the point where we bring something to the CAC for consideration and then possibly approving it before it gets sent out to like the sheriff's office as like an official recommendation from the CAC. So this was, I made like a bullet point kind of thing with notes, and then Rania took that and created this in detail with examples of like when each thing kicks in and what rules are at each step and kind of how the process works from beginning to end. And she also added the SMART goal template that's included in here, which we never had before. And yeah. And a final report template as well. So that we can have kind of consistency moving forward from all the ad hocs, regardless of what the projects are. All of this could be used in some form. Any questions, thoughts?
I have a couple of questions. One is there an instance where somebody sent something to the sheriff's department and said, this is a recommendation of the CAC. And we want to comment or discuss it with you.
What do you mean? Like, to the sheriff? I don't know, I feel like the way that your ad hoc did the work
Because we
was kind of,
didn't do that.
it kind of
I'll
seemed
clear,
like it was going that route because everything was written as if the CAC had already like gave it a blessing and then presented to the sheriff, even though we never actually voted and discussed it as a CAC making that recommendation.
well, that didn't happen.
So, but I feel like the process, and I'll take responsibility for that. We didn't have like set requirements and it got to the point where like that's what it seemed like it was being presented as. When realistically, you work on your recommendation, you present it to the CAC, we take formal action on it. And then the officers pass it down to the sheriff, like if it gets adopted. And what happened was you brought your report to the CAC in June, we didn't take any action on it. There were comments on things that we thought should be modified. But I think from that meeting, it led to more communication with the sheriff's office that things started getting accepted from his office without being formal recommendations from the CAC. Does that make sense?
It's hard to stop the sheriff from taking action based on ideas that you're communicating and bouncing back and forth. I don't know how we would have arrived at a set of recommendations without discussing those concepts with the sheriff. And what happened was that the sheriff agreed to adopt several of the concepts that we were kicking around back and forth. I don't know how we would have avoided what happened.
I don't think we were trying to avoid it. That's the reason that when your ad hoc presented the letter, saying the CAC recommended this and we thank you or something for accepting this, or I can't remember how you worded it, but the one that I rewrote, I used everything that you wrote except in the spots where you wrote the CAC, I said the K-9 ad hoc committee. Because it should have been coming from you guys.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
What difference does it make to this? Why are we revisiting that issue?
I'm revisiting it because Lorena said that there was a problem that needed to be addressed, and I'm trying to understand what the problem is. Because, Nancy, I think that it behooves us to have some clarity about what are the ways that we're supposed to communicate and not communicate with the sheriff's department personnel while we're doing the work of an ad hoc, prior to arriving at a set of recommendations to bring to the CAC to say, here's what we have arrived at as the ad hoc's set of recommendations to the CAC.
But don't you think that number 3 deals with that?
And I don't think I said that there's a problem. I'm saying so that in the future, moving forward, we know what the steps are. That's why we have this toolkit that we're bringing to all of you so that we can adopt something, and then every ad hoc in the future will have something that guides them in their work. This isn't like specific to K-9 or anything. It's just like something that seemed like we needed because questions have come up, and not just with your ad hoc, but with different ad hocs as to when we do what. And how does something get to the sheriff? And I feel like we've talked about it, not like you and I, but it's come up like when Evan used to be chair, like just the process is confusing. So I think over time and just seeing different examples of things that get confusing, it seemed like we really needed like a guide. That's.
Formalizing this doesn't prevent us from communicating with the sheriff
No,
in a more informal way, just back and forth, kind of sharing ideas and maybe draft documents and all that, right?
yeah,
I think that was kind of my concern too, when I first looked at this, was it felt like, okay, we're gonna formalize it, so don't communicate it until
Yeah.
it's approved by CAC, which that's too formal.
But that's not what it says.
Right, no, that's just what it seems like, right? Because you're formalizing this process, so
But
I get it.
But step 3 says that
Right.
you should be communicating throughout, and there should be a back and forth. So I want to make clear that that's part of
The expectation.
the expectation,
Yep.
is that we do work through the liaison to get feedback from the sheriff, and you give the sheriff's office enough time to provide the feedback before you bring it to the CAC.
yeah, and that's on page 18 of the packet, it says on there, you may communicate with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, CEC liaison throughout your work. The liaison is expected to keep the sheriff informed and serve as their point of contact, and anytime we want like to find out more information, we always go through Lieutenant Kidder, and then he connects us to whoever we need to speak to if he doesn't have the information. So that's worked well, and we're not saying not to do that. You're welcome to contact the sheriff through the liaison for feedback or to explore potential collaboration. And then it also says if you're waiting for feedback, to give him like 2 weeks to respond. But it's not saying don't do this until like, you don't have to come to the CAC to say, hey, we wanna check in with the sheriff on this and get permission. Like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying on the final product of all the work that you've done, if you send that to the sheriff's office to just say, this is what's going to be presented to the CAC, that's what you should be saying, not like the CAC's adopting this or things like that. Like, don't create confusion that something has been blessed by the entire CAC when it's just coming from that off. Does that make sense? And we can clarify whatever you guys think is confusing. That's why we're having this conversation. Do you have something you wanted to add on?
I think it's good to have some guardrails for the CAC, or for the ad hocs. I think that having guardrails is a good idea, and I know, like, on the RIPA ad hoc that I was on, when we met with the sheriff, one of the comments he made was, you don't need to wait all year to give me a suggestion on what you're trying to do, because if he agrees with the suggestion
Mhm.
from an ad hoc or the CAC, he's gonna contemplate it, potentially put it into and put it into policy or whatever he's gonna do with it. And I think if the fallout of this is in working as an ad hoc, that the sheriff adopts something before the ad hoc makes his suggestion back to the CAC, that's a home run. And we shouldn't be arguing about the guardrails of it, we should just accept the
win.
and move on. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I think having the guardrails is good, because before I was on the ad hoc, from what I understood, some of the ad hocs were functioning for a long period of time. And if you get hung up on stuff and you don't move on to the next thing, we're not doing what I think the community expects, which is tackling more than just 1 or 2 issues. So I personally like this. We wordsmith it, sure, but I don't think it's necessary.
I would like to just, it is a win if the sheriff adopts it and then the CAC adopts it. But if the CAC says, no, we don't like that recommendation, and, so keeping the CAC up to date about what you're taking to the sheriff is also important. I mean, we don't have to do that in detail, but just sort of, making sure that you're generally on the same page when, because if one person is an ad hoc of 1 and goes to the sheriff and says, I think we should do X, Y, Z, and he said, hey, great idea. And the rest of the CAC says, oh, no, that's a terrible idea, then we're kind of in trouble.
I also think that's why we have a working group, to make sure that we're actually setting some
Right.
pretty low bar objectives right out the gate, so somebody's not saying, I'm going rogue against the CAC, right? So
And there are no ad hocs of one. Right, there's,
hopefully,
Well, you know, but there's not a there's a, you know, if somebody really wanted to pursue something and was willing to put in the effort and nobody else wanted to do it. And the CAC said, so yeah, go ahead and do it. We could have ad hoc of one or two.
oh,
We certainly have ad hoc of two.
right,
I think if we ever run into a time where, let's say your ad hoc meets with the sheriff and then the sheriff's like. You tell the sheriff, hey, we have this idea in mind, and we've been doing this research, and he says. Yeah, I'm gonna start implementing that, draft something tomorrow, and then by Friday, I'm gonna have this, like. You know, presented to my staff, that's a win for your ad hoc, so then. Because. The sheriff liked your idea and he's the one who decided to start doing that, I feel like. At that point, something should be brought to the CAC at the next meeting where you state that and put it in writing and just say, this idea was discussed with the sheriff at this meeting. A formal request or a formal action from the CAC was not taken, but the sheriff decided to implement this. And we need to have like documented information on the website, so we would upload something to the website stating that, so it shows like. That would be a win for your ad hoc without going through the CAC, but we want everything, we do everything as a group. And we can't tell the sheriff, oh, don't do that wait till we talk about it at our next meeting and stuff like that, like, he decides what he wants to do, but. But if there was an instance where that happened, I feel like we should document that somehow to show he liked this idea, hearing it from the ad hoc and decided to implement it immediately and then put that on the website showing that.
Can I give my 2 cents?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's nothing to say that you can't say, Sheriff, I love the fact that you love this idea. We need to run it by the CAC just to follow whatever, I don't know if that's part of the Brown Act or whatever, that it has to come from the group itself. But during those informal meetings, he decides to adopt 1 through 5 and you guys are like, oh, that's a win. Sure, that's awesome. All right, now what needs to happen now, especially knowing that we have these clear procedures? We're gonna run it by the CAC. Once the CAC adopts it, I'll send you an email. We can start implementing.
Yeah, that's great.
Why can't that work?
I think that's a great idea.
we don't control implementation at the sheriff's office.
Right.
I mean, like,
I
they don't come back and say,
I
well, yeah,
understand that, Nate, but if you say that and he says, heck, I'm gonna do it anyway,
Yeah.
then okay, then you try, but I think you've at least tried to
yeah,
communicate.
yeah, we should communicate with the state, I think, obviously, yes.
Absolutely, thank you.
I also this step 3 where it says key actions, contact the sheriff's office first to educate the ad hoc. I don't see why it has to be first. I mean, you know, the ad hoc has to educate itself around the issue. And I totally agree that a key action is to contact the sheriff's office, but I don't think that's necessarily where it starts. I think it can start in the ad hoc to, you know, figure out what is it that you're after and where do you want to go with this? So I would just, when I read that, I thought, oh, you have to start out at the sheriff's office. It did not what most of the ad hocs, I think, have done necessarily. They do their own research and think about it and they discuss it with the sheriffs. So,
But we might take out the word first.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying, because it is a directive here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's necessarily how it has to happen. The other thing that I was that on the previous page under step 2, it says leverage your support network early. Ad hoc shall include ILR staff and contractors at each ad hoc meeting. That is bulky, I think, because it's hard enough to get the ad hoc together, let alone to make sure that you've got the contractor. I think the contractor is great. Having a consultant is great. And I think some of the ad hocs could have used her more. However, I don't think it's hard enough to get an ad hoc meeting together, let alone to make sure you've got an ILRO staff and Rania or the contractor on board. So I just don't think that should limit when a an ad hoc can meet. I
I
think
feel
we
like
should,
that's how it was before we had Ronnie. Like Nate, how many times did we have like issues getting together with Darnell and like we couldn't come up with a time, everything was all over the place, and then once Rania came in, it's like we always seem to be able to meet, and like she just had a way of like taking everyone's input and finding a time that worked for everyone, and I feel like that helped us kind of stay on top of our work instead of letting like 3 months go by with us trying to figure out a time to meet and
okay,
discuss. So that's one of the reasons that we put that in there as well.
okay,
So
Yeah.
I'm fairly new and I've been on one ad hoc and we've never had a contractor at our meetings. So that to me is news that we have to have a contractor, that it has happened. I think we've tried. Scheduling hasn't worked and we've met, et cetera. So I am also concerned with the shall. It should probably, when at all possible. But shouldn't preclude us from meeting,
Yeah.
or else work may never get done.
Or we might say it shall invite.
Yeah,
Instead of.
Okay, that's-
or whenever possible, you're right,
Yeah.
That's been our
So
goal.
that the staff and the contractor are always aware that, yeah.
Yeah.
not saying-
Yeah, that's
If
been our
They can't
goal.
make a meeting, they can't make the meeting, but if,
Mhm.
but
That's
it
better.
was, would that be okay? Instead of shall invite?
Yes, but I would also like, I don't know where you guys think it's appropriate. For any ad hoc who's gone like more than like, I don't know, 2 months without meeting, that then they would be required to like work through the contractor
Yeah.
to get like the work going. So like ad hocs can meet on their own and invite the contractor to attend, but if there's an ad hoc that's kind of moving really slow, then they need a little push, then they should be required to have. At that point, I think the contractor should jump in to kind of take over scheduling and getting the ad hoc moving. And I don't know how maybe we can word that and incorporate that in here somehow. If you guys think it's a good idea.
So this document uses, language. That calls it a guide. It also uses some imperative type language. It has some places where it says critical rule. I guess my concern, so the first thing I want to say about this document is I think it's great to help ad hocs understand
Mhm.
a way forward. Here is a checklist, a flow chart in essence, that helps you structure your way forward, questions to ask yourself, etc. I think that's all really important and useful and helpful. I am also concerned that it's kind of like a daunting thing that can be read as a set of requirements that is gonna cool a lot of people's jets on wanting to get involved in an ad hoc and be committed to a bunch of requirements that I don't know that they're gonna make sense in every instance, etc. So, as I read this, and I certainly understand the thing that we started with, Lorena, which is, you don't communicate to the sheriff that here are the CAC's recommendations. I totally get that. That's a hard rule. It should be. Of course, that would be, a mess. But I think of this as if it is a set of guidelines that exist to help you and your ad hoc get from point A to point C, I think that's really helpful. If it's a set of requirements that, like, it starts to feel like a minefield, I feel like it might be counterproductive.
So what parts do you feel like are
I'm
requirements?
not there. I'm not there. I'm just talking broadly.
Any other comments?
Well, one of the, I mean, in my reading of this, I feel like one of the central ideas here is to use the staff and use the consultant. So if that is something that is in fact a requirement, then I think it should be stated as I mean, you know, like we've hired this consultant, we want every ad hoc to involve this person in their work. Then that should be made clear, and you have done that by saying shall include the either. I agree that it's like, some of them feel like suggestions and some of them feel like requirements. And I think one of the central things is use your resources in a better way. And we're hiring this person to help you out. Use this person, you know, so I just think I don't know, maybe it just needs to be made clearer that the expectation is that you will use the consultants. That's what I felt like was an issue with our ad hoc, was that we really didn't use Rania very much. And that the feedback was, we wish, you know, you had used her more. So I would just make that clearer, that's the expectation. She's not just here for decoration. But I do think to say that she has to be at every meeting and Ilera staff has to be at every meeting will slow down the gears of the ad hoc. I think she has to be kept, or whoever it is, has to be kept up to date with every single ad hoc, and her input needs to be considered for every ad hoc. I think that makes perfect sense. But I keep saying the same thing.
So take away the word shall. So that it's not required that the contractor attends each ad hoc meeting. And I don't. Go ahead, Nancy.
You know, that's in the section on leverage your network early. That's really part of the network. I think that's really in looking at this, I think it's in the wrong place. And that we could say the same thing in the next section under tracking progress. Where, you know, where we're talking about holding regular meetings, which I think could be a requirement.
Yeah, I do too.
And then it says connect with your support resources early, especially the contracted strategic advisor. So it's kind of right there, and we could add in the whole regular ad hoc meetings and invite staff or the consultant to attend.
Yeah.
How about if we did that?
I think that's
So we would
better.
just take out under leverage your support network early, remove that first item. You wanna,
Then put it somewhere else, you said.
and then put under track progress on the next page. Well, there it is. Hold regular ad hoc meetings to check in on milestones, update timelines, and report progress. Flag challenges early and seek support from leadership or staff as needed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so on
So
page
the-
16, we're taking out the bullet point at the bottom underneath leverage of support network early.
Oh, yes, not, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, and then move it, and then on 18. Good in track progress.
And that one will leave it as is.
Yeah, I would say support from leadership, staff. Or what do we call this? Consulting advisor. As needed, like that. Just add this, leadership, comma, staff, comma, or consulting advisor as needed.
Okay,
Does that feel better?
I think so. To me.
what do you guys think?
Is there anybody still awake?
Yeah,
Yeah, so before I liked it, I liked it and before, and I think it's a good guideline, I think, yeah, I mean, there's more attorneys, I'm not an attorney, I'm just a normal person, so. But, you know, is there a way just to have like a sentence in the beginning that say the following guidelines are to be used as guidelines or not to be set in stone, or however you want to say that? And then we don't have to wordsmith the entire document, and just know that the idea is, please use this as a frame of reference to keep your ad hoc moving in the right direction over the next year. I don't know, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it just seemed, we could wordsmith the hell out of it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to simplify.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. we can do that.
You know, it really says that on the first page. Yeah, first page.
Oh, yeah,
Think of the
And
playbook
it's
as your
got-
foundation and this guidance and follow to the step-by-step instructions, so maybe we
Yeah.
should say a step-by-step suggestion or.
Mhm.
Something there, and then you keep it simple.
Okay.
okay,
Anyway,
And maybe take the shallows out.
Yeah,
okay,
I think take the shells, that's a good,
I'm sure
Well,
a
it's,
simple way to do some of this.
it's a guide.
It's
Sure.
Yeah.
Have to do something.
Good idea.
yeah.
Or February.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have a strategic workshop. And then we don't have any. we're not
Yeah.
having meetings in January.
And I was just gonna add one more thing, I think we should incorporate what Lieutenant Kidder said. And maybe add that somehow, like somewhere,
Step two.
yeah, like. Oh, we come back with adding, if you guys are all okay with it, the suggestion that Lieutenant Kidder brought up. Not word for word, but like, you know, to make sure that it reminds all of us that if the sheriff says he's gonna do something, that we say, okay, we're just gonna, you know.
Bring that
Go
back.
through our process and run it by the CAC first, and then we'll let you know what they state. And then remove the shalls and check for anything else that seems like it's a formal rule, and make sure that we note that this is a guide and you don't have to go like strictly 1 through 6 as it states. Does that work? And then we'll have another.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a good
But I-
document. I think it's a very good document. It's,
It is a good.
and it
And I
will be well used, I think.
okay, we'll take public comment, John, do you have anything to add? Forgot to ask.
No, but I appreciated the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll open it up for public comment. And you have 3 minutes. Is there any in the room?
Well, I already made my comment unofficially.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll have Jim Duffy. Go.
I love the conversation you're having about it. Thank you very much. 2 quick things. I think it's important that you do document on the website any informal wins that you have as you're going through this process, because not a month goes by that I am not defending IOLARO and the CAC to some member of the community as effective and wonderful organizations we should have. And from people on the far left to the far right, they want to attack civilian oversight. And so being able to prove the importance of it is an important thing for us to have over the time. So if you're having these informal wins and you're not documenting them, people will think it's just natural change coming from the sheriff's office and not change that initiated through the hard work of the people on your body. So please figure out how to do that. And I really like the idea of starting with the sheriff's office. Don't put it first, just say early. My experience, which now really long ago, because I was 2016 to 2019, was that the sheriff's liaison a lot of times early on in the process could help you short circuit what you're focusing on, because they could figure out ways to get us to our end. They would understand the end product that we wanted, and they would have us go down a path that was viable, as opposed to going down a path that was not going to lead us to our end result. I hope that made sense. Thanks so much for taking my comment.
Thank you, Jim. Seeing other hand raised, we'll go ahead and close public comment on this item. And so we will come back at the February meeting with a revised guide based on the comments that were gathered today. And I just wanted to add, this is not, I don't want the canine on hot to think that this just came about because of you guys. Like, there's always been questions as to when something gets brought to the CAC, what the steps are to be taken, and we just started like adding stuff to the website and making pages for the ad hocs and adding progress on there. So there's different things that have come about because of questions that have been brought up by CAC members throughout the years. So that is a main reason why we were bringing a guide to for you guys to consider.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to business item C, discussion on the proposed strategic planning workshop agenda activities scheduled for Saturday, January 10th, 2026. So we have we were planning on basically doing, having a similar, I thought something was supposed to be added. Similar process to, what we did last year, except we wouldn't be continuing the ad hoc. So we're gonna have a, memo kind of thing that, John's gonna provide, and we've been working on it so far, that kind of has some ideas on things that we can work on. We did this last year, and I think the year before that too, where he gave us like ideas on things that could be discussed. And I think Ronnie is gonna be there to help. And I thought, let me just quickly look at the, do you have the agenda? What was that? I thought that was gonna be in the packet, you guys, sorry. And there is a conflict with the sheriff's office, so we might just take the time to have a more in-depth discussion, because I feel like we always kind of run out of time on how we want to decide what we want to work on throughout the year. But okay, so that's our draft agenda. Which is similar, like I said, to last year's.
Yeah, I need to change
Community
the dates.
engagement is supposed to go up above,
I need to change the
the
dates.
breakouts, yeah.
This is the old one from last year.
So we'll have breakout sessions, and we're also going to use the ideas that we collect from the community. There's a questionnaire that's been sent out. If you haven't shared it in your social media and stuff, be sure to send that out. But yeah, we'll be collecting ideas from the community and then having discussions on that, and also using the suggestions from John, and then at that, towards the end of the meeting, deciding on what our ad hocs will be and propose SMART goals. And then people will volunteer for ad hocs. And then we'll get our work started. Any questions? Ideas? Suggestions? Is there any public comment?
I had a question.
Yeah.
You just had mentioned something, I may have missed it, that there was something different this year from last with regard to ad hocs. You're saying there's gonna be more
Oh.
time discussing ad hocs at this meeting or?
Yeah, and last year, we basically. We didn't really have new ad hocs except the community engagement on ICE, because our previous ad hocs basically had a lot of unfinished work. And that's actually when we got introduced to SMART goals and, we decided that we would have SMART goals that we set so that the ad hocs could be more focused and we actually produce results within the time frame that we're committing to. Because yeah, we did kind of take long.
Right.
So that's how Ronnie came into the picture and all of that. But yeah, that's kind of what's different.
But it is, so it's slated in the agenda of this one that there will be discussion for possible new ad hocs to be started.
Yeah, and we actually have, remember when you brought up the work that you were doing and then,
In the jail.
yeah, and then I had mentioned that the CAC hadn't discussed it. So that could be, that's a time when you bring up those ideas and then we talk about it as a group and then see what everybody thinks. And then determine if that should have an ad hoc or not.
John sent something to you.
Yeah, check your email.
Check your email.
I may have missed it.
Yeah, your idea about the jail is gonna be on that memo that John's gonna send out with ideas on things that we could work.
I think initially he emailed the old email, but he emailed you today to the correct
Oh,
email,
today,
to the new.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, checking on that and yeah, that will be on it. Any questions?
And this will get out before the meeting. So it won't be, it won't fall like it's sitting there reading it at the meeting.
The list of ideas,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
and if there's anything that people have right now that they would like to include there, we can do that.
yeah.
They're not gonna be all new ad hocs, are they? I mean, will the ICE, the community, that
Well,
will
the
continue, right?
Engagement on ICE will
Yeah.
do that.
Right,
And some version of the community engagement.
because that's not going away anytime soon.
It goes away every year, comes back as a new. ad hoc,
Yeah, and
a new version of it.
Yeah.
and community members are welcome to also send ideas through either the questionnaire. I know there was one idea that Jim Duffy brought up. A couple months ago to me that I'm probably gonna bring up, or maybe he'll attend and then we can let him. Tell you all how he envisions that, but yeah, suggestions on things that we can work on is what we'll be doing. And then deciding. Okay, now we are moving on to CAC committee reports and we'll start with community engagement. And we don't have RIPA or K9 because those ad hocs completed their work. And they no longer exist.
Poof, my work is done. I'm out of here, right?
Community engagement, so, I'm going to look at our SMART goals for the year, and we didn't get them all done. I think the major thing we got done was the playbook. We also, made sure that our agenda, each agenda has the goals, the purpose of the CAC, so that we're all on the same page about who we are and why we're here. Becoming now has videos in Spanish and English about ILR on our website. So that's a plus. We did an outreach this last year to a number of organizations via email, and it didn't really produce anything, unfortunately, so we need to rethink that. And we had hoped to develop and execute a publicity plan around the annual report, and that didn't happen. So that is going. we had the agenda for action, which was kind of part of that, which didn't really make, didn't really pan out. As I mentioned last month, that we were talking about listening sessions, which had initially been suggested to get ideas for the strategic workshop, but we decided instead to do this questionnaire, because of the time of year that it is, not too many people are gonna show up for a listening session when they can. And I certainly can't get my self together for the holidays.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen, but the questionnaire did, and we already have some responses, and Lizette sent everybody yesterday, today, yesterday, the links to the questionnaire, so if you have social media, please feel free to put that on your social media page and suggest people respond. It's a very, will you questionnaire. In English and Spanish.
Thank you. Community engagement about ICE.
So we have finally, confirmed with, through the sheriff's department, that we have the information we're offering about what the sheriff's does and doesn't do with ICE is actually correct, so we can publish it without fear of being incorrect. And we have decided, instead of having a list of of services that the county offers, use what the county has already produced. They have a flyer, use that flyer. It has a QR code to link to their immigration resource page. And thank God they do, because finding it otherwise is very difficult. But you can, but the QR code works. So we're gonna do that so that those will be available at our tabling events. And I think we've already reported on that meeting that we had with people who are in touch with ICE at the sheriff's department, and we keep all our stats. And that's what I'll have to report on that.
And Lieutenant Kidder sent like the examples of.
Yeah, we had asked for certain documents that they use or receive, either receive from ICE or they use to send information to ICE, and we got the templates for those. But haven't done anything with them yet.
Any
Thanks,
questions?
Sheriff. Lieutenant.
Any questions from CAC members? Is there any public comment on the reports? Okay, we'll close public comment. And now we'll do public comment for non-action items from this agenda, or items not appearing on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the CAC, and we'll do 3 minutes if there are any. Seeing none in the room, we have one hand raised from Jim Duffy. Go ahead, Jim, whenever you're ready.
You for your great work over this year and wish everybody a happy holidays, and really want to say thank you to Robin, and I will miss you horribly, Robin. You know, for the past 5 years, you've been very involved, even before being on the CAC.
Paid him to do that.
And, you know, I hope that you zoom in occasionally to the CAC meetings with your grandchildren on your lap and, you know, raise them right. And have a wonderful time being a full-time grandparent. And thank you for everything.
Thank you, Jim. That was so nice.
One more.
Thank you.
Jim?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to echo what Jim said. Yeah, both to Robin and also to all of you. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. And it's hard for me even to zoom in sometimes. So I'm so impressed that you just keep going. And I'm just really grateful for the work you're doing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? No? Okay. CAC announcements?
Well,
Yeah.
isn't this where you said I could say something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have talked to my supervisor, Rebecca Hermosillo, about finding a replacement for me. And I spoke to her about, I live in Oakmont, and I had originally thought, oh, maybe I'll find somebody else in Oakmont. And I thought, you know, I'd rather have a broader representation on this board, on this, group than just another white person. So I spoke to her about, trying to get somebody who is representative of the broader community and not just Oakland. And she told me that she has been discussing some possibilities with you, and I was glad to hear that too. So I didn't have anybody specific to recommend to her, but it was, I felt like the wheels had already started rolling, and that I was glad about that. So.
Mention, okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we do know of someone who submitted an application and we let Supervisor Hermosillo know that it was pending for her review, for her consideration. And yeah, that's.
Well, I thank you for that, the work that you've done to find somebody.
That person will have big shoes to fill.
Sorry?
Whoever gets appointed will have big shoes to fill.
Oh.
You're very involved.
Thank you.
More CAC comments?
Yeah.
Robin, it has been such a pleasure to know you and to work with you for these last couple of years. I first got to know Robin when she brought food and drink to me at the door of my hotel room in Chicago when I had COVID during the NACOL conference. That was my introduction to Robin, and she is a giver, incredibly hard worker, a thoughtful person. Has been my joy to know you and to work with you. All the best.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's been a joy for me to be on this council, and I have learned a great deal being here. And it's also been a wonderful way for me to feel like I'm connected to a broader community, because Oakmont can feel like a little sterile bubble, which it is actually. And so it's really nice to feel like, you can reach out and be a part of a larger community and then bring that back to my work in Oakmont. So I've just appreciated being a part of this group so much and getting to know you all. And so it's very bittersweet for me to be leaving. I love it here. And I know that I've wanted to be a grandparent for years, and now I get to be a grandparent. And so I know that's the right decision to make. But the whole moving out of Sonoma County and moving away from people like you and my other political work that I do, it's hard. It's really hard because I'm gonna have to start a whole, just like put down all new routes where I'm going. And it's a big job, but I am looking forward to the opportunities that it presents as well as the challenges. But yeah, so I will miss you all. I have loved being on this council. And I appreciate that I've been able to make a contribution, because I came on I didn't really know that much about, all this. And I feel like you all have been very generous in, allowing me to ask stupid questions all along the way. But I never felt like judged or anything about, just needing information. And that's a really That's a really good quality to have in a group like this, so. I thank you all.
Thank you, Rowan. We're gonna see.
There's 2 cards.
Yeah, so it's not a surprise.
Go.
There's some cards going around and we have a little cake for the end of the meeting.
Yes,
You guys are sweet.
thank you. Did everybody?
Okay, so, item 11, discussion of possible.
Wait, John wants to.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Thanks. I just wanted to jump on the bandwagon of being sad that Robin's leaving. And you know, Robin, one of the things, in addition to all the other comments people made, which I thought were brilliant, I have really appreciated how you dug right into the subject matter, because I remember meeting you out in Oakmont and you're, you know, really intrigued by it. But I know this is an area in which you hadn't done a lot of work in you know, law enforcement oversight before. And watching you dig in and learn the material and then have some really thoughtful observations about how to improve things with the sheriff's office, I thought made the point that an average member of the community can really get involved in this process and make a really positive difference, right? And, you know, in that way, you know, the fact that you came in with this beginner's mind, I thought was actually real positive. And I hope that's a reminder to others who are thinking about this kind of work that you don't have to come from any particular background. It doesn't necessarily have to be this kind of work that you've done before. And it's actually really valuable for us to have people like you, Robin, who care about their community and just want to learn and have a fresh perspective. And I think that actually makes civilian oversight and the input that it can provide to law enforcement more valuable. And so I just love the way that you had, you know, a confidence and an interest and, you know, jumped right in there in a way that some other people might be intimidated, right? But you took it right on, and I thought you did a great job, and I'm going to miss having you here. So good luck to you.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Okay, discussion of possible topics to publicize in the newsletter. Any? Nothing? Okay, so we will move on to item 12, adjournment. We're gonna adjourn this meeting at 7:17 p.m. and we're going to be canceling the regular meeting that we normally have in January because we're having the strategic planning workshop or retreat on Saturday, January 10th. So we will see you all at 10 a.m. at the Rohnert Park Community Center, and that meeting is in person only. So we won't have the Zoom option, so community members should come in person. And then the next regular meeting will be February 11th, and we will be meeting back here for our normal routine. That's all for tonight. Thank you all. Happy holidays and see you all next year.
And stay for the cake.
Yeah, and stay for the cake. Right here. Night.
Night.